How many times have you reshaped yourself just to be accepted? How many times have you smiled while hating every second of being there? Have you ever felt praised and ashamed at the same time? Have you noticed how the world claps louder for those who adapt than for those who dare to be real? Some people are winning on the outside and rotting on the inside. People who got exactly where they wanted, but became someone they never meant to be. And the question most people avoid is this: is it really worth getting applause for a character, while your real self slowly dies in silence? This video isn't about success. It's about the cost of betraying yourself, and why that betrayal became the most applauded lie in the world. Acceptance is one of the oldest human needs. Since the days of caves and fires, our survival has been tied to belonging. But in today's world, that primal need has twisted into something more subtle and way more corrosive: the need to be applauded, even if it means giving up who we really are. That's why so many people shape themselves through someone else's eyes, because being loved for what you pretend to be feels easier than being rejected for what you truly are. That's the trap. You trade authenticity for approval, and don't even realize the currency you're paying with is your own identity. The problem is, when the love is aimed at a mask, the person behind it still feels invisible. And there's a bitter taste hidden inside applause. A taste only those who've betrayed themselves truly know. That feeling of achieving something, a status, a contract, someone's approval, and still feeling absolutely nothing. Or worse, feeling ashamed, like you stole a win that was never really yours. Because deep down, it wasn't you standing there. It was the optimized version, the edited, tamed, polished version, a shape-shifting caricature of your true self. And the more you get praised for that version, the further you drift from who you really are. In those cases, success stops being a win and turns into a sentence, a public reminder that you didn't need to be yourself to get there. But the real question that eats you up inside is this: how long can that actually work? How long can your soul carry the disguise? At some point, the bill shows up, and it's not in dollars. It shows up as burnout, anxiety, sleepless nights, and a deep sense of emptiness. The same society that teaches you how to perform rarely teaches you how to hold yourself together. And in the end, it cheers loudest for the ones who mold themselves best. But what's the price? What started as a smart strategy turns into a quiet pact with self-betrayal. You keep stacking up wins while losing pieces of yourself along the way. And by the time you realize it, what's left can't even recognize who started the journey. We live in a world that rewards those who adapt. From school to the workplace, we're taught that recognition comes to those who fit in, who play the game, who smile even when they want to scream. The problem is, that game has unwritten rules. Be likable, avoid conflict, show competence, but never vulnerability. Authenticity becomes a threat, and the ability to shapeshift gets confused with emotional intelligence. Applause stops being a reflection of who you are and becomes just a conditioned response to how well you match other people's expectations. Psychology nailed this a long time ago. It's called social reinforcement. The more you act in ways that are socially acceptable, the more you're rewarded, with validation, affection, and opportunities. Sounds fair, until you realize the side effect. You start doing what works, not what's real. We turn into characters chasing approval, collecting positive reactions while drifting further and further from our inner compass. Carl Jung warned us, the more we identify with the persona, that social mask, the deeper our true self gets pushed into the shadows. And the result? Someone who's praised in public, but painfully disconnected in private. The trap is subtle because the system makes it look desirable. Being praised is addictive. Every time your brain gets a hit of approval, it releases dopamine, the same chemical linked to pleasure and reward. It's an emotional high that keeps reinforcing the behavior, even when that behavior is slowly wrecking you. And very few people have the guts to walk away from that cycle because it wears the mask of success. But being loved for a strategically crafted version of yourself isn't love. It's image maintenance. And that image? It demands to be fed every single day at the cost of your truth, your spontaneity, and eventually, your mental health. The price of betraying yourself for acceptance is far too high to be paid with applause. The world applauds what it understands, but personal greatness is always born from breaking patterns, defying expectations, and rejecting convenience. Being true to yourself is a lonely act, but it's the only path that won't lead to future shame. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche doesn't write for the masses. He speaks to the individual who dares to be singular, because the greatest failure isn't falling. It's adapting so much that you stop being who you are. You can conquer the world, but if you lost yourself along the way, all you have is a plastic empire. Kierkegaard called this quiet despair, living as if you were someone else, wearing masks that fuse to your skin, repeating gestures that don't come from the soul. It works, it's comfortable, it's accepted, but inside, it's the collapse of integrity, of identity, of the soul. Being true to yourself is expensive. You lose space, you lose people, you lose contracts, but you gain something money can't buy: coherence. And whoever has coherence can carry the weight of their own name without fear of being exposed. Betraying yourself is easy, it's quick, it's the shortest route to spineless success. But every time you adapt too much, something inside you shrinks, and the bill always comes. And when it does, no applause will ever be enough to wash away the bitter taste of having won as someone else. Kierkegaard said that the worst kind of despair is living as if you were someone else. Not the despair of heartbreak or loss, but the quiet despair of someone who settled into a comfortable role. That kind of life may look functional on the outside, but inside, it's existential anesthesia. The person adapts so much they start to confuse the mask with the face. And by the time they realize it, they can no longer tell what's a real desire and what's just a reflection of other people's expectations. Living like that isn't living, it's performing. And performing every day wears you down, even when the role is applauded. Nietzsche went even deeper. To him, a truly whole individual is someone who dares to break away from the morality of the masses. Someone who doesn't follow rules just because they exist, but because they've chosen them, after an inner confrontation with their own truth. That's the spirit of the Übermensch, the one who recreates himself, not out of vanity, but out of loyalty to his highest impulse. But that journey demands solitude. It demands rupture. It demands the strength to carry the weight of being misunderstood. Integrity, in this sense, isn't a gift. It's an achievement that costs courage, and today, courage is rare. The price of integrity is high because it threatens the system. A coherent person who doesn't bend just to please others is unpredictable. And whatever can't be predicted, the world tries to neutralize. That's why so many people choose to stay quiet, to water down their truth, to silence the discomfort they feel when going with the flow. But inner silence doesn't lie. It shows up as insomnia, anxiety, unease. Integrity can cost you status, deals, even relationships. But it gives you something nothing else can: the power to look in the mirror without looking away. And in a world built on appearances, that's a revolution. Because human beings can tolerate humiliation, pain, and even injustice, but what they can't stand is looking in the mirror and seeing an idiot staring back. There's a kind of success no one envies, the kind you achieve at the cost of your own truth. It's the type of win that shines on the outside but withers on the inside. Plenty of people reach status, prestige, recognition, but when they lie down at night, there's a restlessness they can't shake. The world might see an accomplishment, but they know there was a hidden deal. To get there, they had to stop being who they were. And that kind of awareness doesn't go away. In fact, it sticks around like a constant reminder that it wasn't really you who won, it was your mask. Psychology calls this cognitive dissonance, the clash between what we do and who we believe we are. When that gap grows too wide, the mind answers back with guilt, shame, and disconnection. And no matter how much you try to justify it, the body knows. The shine of success turns into exhaustion. Achievement becomes constant tension. Because any victory that demands self-denial isn't a victory. It's a golden prison. You're not celebrating, you're surviving. Living to protect a made-up identity meant to impress others. while your real self silently screams under the weight of applause that was never meant for you. What's worse is that, most of the time, that success becomes a reference point for others. People start to admire you for what you've achieved, not realizing what it actually cost your soul. And that's when a new kind of pain sets in. You become part of the lie. You keep showing up as a version of yourself you didn't choose, but now you're stuck with. Because now, it's not just about you anymore. It's about keeping the illusion alive. But when the curtain falls, the makeup fades, and the lights go out, all that's left is you, and the discomfort of having won as someone you never wanted to be. At the end of the day, all of this leads us to one uncomfortable question. Who are you when no one's watching? Not who you show to the world, not what you post, wear, or defend in public, but who you are in the quiet of your thoughts when there's no one left to impress. That's one of the hardest questions to answer honestly. Because at some point we've all adapted too much. We've all silenced something we felt just to fit somewhere. But maybe it's time to stop fitting in and start living in your own skin again. This video wasn't made to be comfortable. It was made to shake you, to uninstall certainty, to challenge your routine, to push your safe zones. Not because we want chaos, but because sometimes it's discomfort that brings us back to truth. Maybe you're tired, maybe you've gotten used to the role you play every day, but here's the good news. It's not too late to come back. Back to yourself, back to your integrity, back to the version of you that doesn't need applause to exist. Life starts to change the moment you stop trying to impress and finally start to just be. Now I want to hear from you. When in your life did you feel like you were losing yourself just to please others? What part of you did you have to hide to be accepted? Drop it in the comments. Share this with someone who's going through the same thing in silence. Maybe this video is the wake-up call they've been waiting for. If this message hit home for you, leave a like. It helps this video reach more people who need to hear this truth too. Subscribe to the channel, because here we don't sugarcoat the surface. We talk about what really matters. And if you want to keep getting content like this, hit the notification bell. Because sometimes, all we need is a reminder to come back to who we were never supposed to stop being.